Welcome, everybody, to the viewing room. I have Mark Pellegrino, Jax Schumann, and Jennifer Buoani with me to talk about an affair to remember and maybe other affairs. We'll see. So stick around. I think this is going to be a fun one for sure. And if you haven't seen Affair to Remember, it's 1957, Cary Grant, Deborah Kerr, and it's about two people, Terry McKay, played by Deborah Kerr, and Deborah Carr, sorry, Deborah
Are
Carr. Deborah Kerr sounds like a slur. And Cary Grant, plays Nikki Florente. Is that correct? Am I getting that? Nikki Ferrente, or Nicolo. They're on a cruise. They're both engaged to other people, but they fall in love. And he says, we'll meet in 6 months, famously to meet at the top of the Empire State Building. This is in Sleepless in Seattle, and many other movies have talked about this. We're going to talk about it now. It's our time to talk about an affair to remember. So before we get into it, team, what do you think? Thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs middle, two thumbs, three thumbs. What are you thinking? We'll start with Jax this time.
Oh, right as I'm like chewing my food.
Okay, we'll come back to
No,
you.
okay, I can go.
Okay.
I finished.
Okay.
Uh, uh, I'm
Oh,
this. I'm
okay.
this. It didn't stand the test of time for me.
Oh man, I even
It
wore a
didn't.
special shirt
It,
for this one.
huh?
No,
Oh yeah.
I even
Well, I
wore a
wore a
special
Saint.
shirt for this.
It's St. Patty's Day, so that's
As we
my shirt.
record, just recording.
I
Yeah, today's
forgot.
yeah.
Oh.
So this will be released in a couple weeks, but okay. So two thumbs. So I'm gonna do my best to see if I can turn those sideways thumbs upwards. We'll see. I'm gonna do my best. Okay, Jax. So Mark, what do you think? No
Yeah,
pressure.
I have to agree with Jackson. I love romantic stories. So
Okay.
despite my thumb sideways, I did drop a tear or two at the end, I have to say, because that's just the way it rolls for me. And a few other places as well, I have to say.
Okay. And Jennifer.
Um, I I just I guess I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but I'm gonna go sideways also.
Okay.
Probably mostly because I grew up in the 80s and John Hughes um and then Harry Met Sally and all of these great romantic comedies that really stand out to me.
Say
Um,
anything. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one was a little dated for me, but there were moments that I appreciated and were real, and we can talk about that.
Okay, now I definitely give it two thumbs up. So I'm gonna see if I can convince anybody by the end. If not, that's okay. I'll still love it. But I've always loved this film. I think it's great for a variety of reasons. But I'd like to dig into what
Okay,
the
so wait, what's your
stories.
special shirt? What's
Yeah.
Oh,
the
it's just like a
story with you?
romantic shirt. That's all. Just like
You're
my
wearing a
little.
romantic shirt.
Yeah, I've gone on dates with this shirt. This is like a
Oh, it's your
shirt.
date
Oh, this
shirt.
is your
It's your
date
Yeah,
date shirt.
it's
shirt.
exactly. It's one that the ladies have said
Oh,
is
this is
one
Nice.
of the.
definitely my date sweater.
There you go. Yeah, like we try to, like I don't have the so we can talk about Cary Grant a little bit. So this is a romance. I don't even think it's a romantic comedy. This is like just romance.
Yeah.
It's romantic comedies I think come a little bit later. I think they do exist at this period to some degree. I don't know the origins, but it's probably like Roman Holiday and those types of things, but where there's a little bit more of a lighthearted thing that's pulling them apart. This is a little bit more serious about what's pulling them apart. And that's basically, by the way, I would say, I don't know if you guys agree with me, but I think that's the essence of romantic stories is that you have two people, but something is getting in the way of them getting together. And that's it. And, in this case, they're both engaged at the first half of the movie. And then the second half of the movie, okay, by the way, everyone, the spoilers are happening definitely right now. So if you haven't seen it, go watch it and then come back. So, okay, bye. Okay, here we go. Spoilers are she gets hit by a taxi and she is maybe crippled for life, can't walk. That's kind of what brings them apart the second half. So that this is a more serious romance in that sense, I think, than a lighthearted romantic comedy. In my opinion. So now I really love this story because I think it fuses like idealism of romance with the problems and the tribulations of reality. And that so it's really that to me that those two things are dominant throughout this story in many different ways and they're hit on different angles. But we'll get into that a little bit more. And I'd be curious to hear from all of you, because you all had tepid views of it. And, Mark said he really loved the ending, and the ending is powerful. I don't know how anybody could not have any kind of reaction to that unless you already knew it going in. But you all mentioned movies today. What is it about this movie that fell mediocre or tepid, is the word I'll use for each of you? And whoever would like to start with your thoughts. Yes, Mark, what do you got?
Okay. Well, I thought this may be in the writing, it may be in execution, but the execution of the scenes where they're attempting to avoid social censure. They don't want to be too out in the open because he's famous and people are going to start talking and the news is going to get back to their betrothed, on the mainland, and they're going to get in trouble. So they try to sneak around a little bit on the ship, but all the ways in which the passengers find them out were very contrived, where they're sitting at a table together. They're sitting at a table ostensibly apart, separated by a partition. They don't know that they've actually gotten single tables that are right next to each other, and the whole place is turning around, looking at them and laughing.
Yeah.
It's naive in a way, and just it makes me it's too on the nose. There's a lot of on the nose acting
Oh, yeah.
in this that doesn't leave up a lot up to the imagination. I did like the chemistry between the two people, although I didn't see Charles Boyer's version, the earlier one, The Love Affair, which is supposedly better.
Hmm.
Is that what this is based on? Was it like a remake of it?
A whole, yes, it's like everything's the same except for the actors. Deborah Carr, interesting, and they have an interesting chemistry together, and I noticed sparks of connection, which I look for as an actor. That's what draws me in to the characters. But the execution was naive, and I thought the obstacle of social censor, that's a real thing, but it's delivered to me in a naive way. As a 21st century man, I can't quite get behind. And what the obstacle in the second part of the movie seems like a contrivance to me, because if I love somebody and I can't get to them because I get into an accident and I'm paralyzed and in the hospital, but I eventually come to my senses, I'm going to get to that person and say, I couldn't make it because I just want you to know I tried. I'm in the hospital right now. That would be me. And so
see, that's an interesting thing. I have a different take on that.
But that's what I would be doing. That would be the focus of my attention, is getting back with that person to let them know I showed up. I want you to know I showed up.
Mm-hmm.
May reject me now because I'm not the same person in a way that I was before, but I showed up. So the idea of her not doing it, imposing this obstacle on herself, that she's going to walk first before she goes to see him, just felt like a contrivance. Now, it might not be. It may be what people actually do in life, that I'm not acquainted with it. I don't know people like that, but it may be. However, it struck me as a contrivance. All that aside, there's still, you still want, as a viewer, the tension to be resolved between the two people by actual reconciliation. You do want that, because you see them, they don't kiss until halfway through the movie, pretty much. The cruise is almost over. And so there's a part of you as a natural observer to the narrative that wants the tension to be released by that coming together of the two of them. They do build up that quite well. And when it finally does happen, you do experience an emotional release. When he sees the picture and puts two and two together, it was a beautiful thing for me still, despite the fact that I thought it was naively rendered.
Okay. I have a lot to say about that, but I do want to hear from everybody else. So about particularly your views of the tepidness that you felt. Why did you feel the tepidness? Jennifer, we'll go this way this time.
Well, what?
You put thumbs sideways like Mark. So what were your reasonings for doing that?
Well, I'm going to bounce off of what Mark said, because I agree with Mark on two things and not on one. So I was right in there with the chemistry on the boat. I thought they did a really good job of being natural, and I felt like that felt real, especially when they got to the grandmother's place. And I also had an issue with some of the contrivedness of the situation, but for me, that carried most strongly at the end. When Mark was crying, I was going, oh, come on. He just happens to go into the bedroom and happens to have remember the story about the painting that was sold to a person. Like that was,
You don't think he would remember the first
took,
painting he sold ever?
Me out of the story completely.
All right.
Why would you walk across the room and go in the bedroom? Like,
because he remembers.
Because it's in the script, Jennifer. It's in the script.
He doesn't see the painting, and then there's another room. He doesn't see the painting in the room, so he goes into the room that has the closed door to see if it's there.
Yeah, it's him testing it.
That's a
leap. It's quite a leap.
I mean, I was wondering how they were going to make that resolution, and so it does feel a bit cheap, but I still took the leap too. I still took the leap.
All right, let's keep going, Jennifer. I'm sorry. What else did you have?
What I did like, I really liked their choices that they had to make. So after this romance has started and they're sitting, hanging over the railing of the boat is about to dock, and she's like, yeah, you realize that the reality of their world, she's dating a very wealthy man, and she doesn't have any other options yet. And he's getting married to a wealthy woman, and he really doesn't have any work skills. And they realize if for their love to work, they're going to have to take some major risk and be independent and living on their own. And they decide to do that for 6 months. And I really appreciated that part of the story. I thought that was really strong and realistic.
Yeah.
Except she doesn't really do that, though. That's the problem that I had with that. She doesn't,
Yes,
I didn't think she did. Well,
she becomes a singer again.
Yeah.
And a teacher.
I guess she does, but she becomes a singer and a teacher, but she still has the fiance is like still hanging around, and she lets him kind of take care of her too, doesn't she?
She's becoming
after she gets hit.
I disagree. I think she's becoming independent. It was when that stuff part of the movie happened. I was asking myself, why would an objectivist actually like this movie? But it was that section where it started to come alive to me, because they became individuals for the first time, not dependents. They became, he went to his art that he didn't have enough confidence to do before, and he started painting and making a living as a painter. And she pursued her dream. She went to school to become a singer in music and literature, and it was unfulfilled in the life that she was going to lead with this new man. And so she went and pursued that, and that was like, that was a light for me. Like, I could see why this could be interesting on this level, at least, for an objectivist. But I'm still dying to know more.
So Jax, you had the tepid response as well. What was your reasoning for it?
I mean, kind of the sort of along the same lines. I didn't have as much of an issue with the ending as Jennifer did, just in terms of the painting. Although I did fall asleep, and sadly I had to make my boyfriend watch it 3 times over before, because it was late. And he wasn't really into it. But I liked, okay, so let me say what I liked about it. I liked I did like their chemistry on the boat. I did think that it was a very quick setup, and that's I think that's one of the reasons why it didn't stand the test of time for me. It was a very quick setup, like boom, they meet within like the first 2 minutes basically of the film, and like instant chemistry. But I do think that they did a really good job with that.
That can happen. You can't have instant chemistry.
You can definitely, yes. You can definitely, maybe we should all talk about, we're
going to talk about love affairs.
Our instant chemistry,
so stick around, everybody.
Stories. Maybe we'll talk about love affairs. But I think for me, it kind of missed the mark for me. It didn't feel like truly organic. I thought that, now I do understand why she wouldn't, after she's been hit by a car and crippled, I do understand why she wouldn't run
please do
and tell
tell.
him. Because if it were me, and if it were like a more insecure version of me, I guess I would be sort of, oh, well, he's not going to want me now. I don't have the use of my legs, and I identified, I've always identified with being able to walk around, and I was a singer, and
And a dancer.
and a beautiful, right? And now who would want me? And so I could actually understand that. I could understand why she wouldn't say anything, despite how much she loved him. So that part, I was actually kind of okay with that part. But I really didn't like, her poor fiance was so supportive of her, and he's so in love with her. And I just didn't know how to feel about how, like, he was just allowing his own heart to get trampled, right? And he was getting nothing out of it, right? Their relationship was over. And I kind of felt like she was like using him a little bit.
Well, she was honest with him, though. It's not like she said.
At least she was honest with him.
It's one thing if she's like, yeah, maybe I'll be with you, and then he's taking care of her.
At least she
was clear, and he still wanted to.
But he was such a nice guy. He was
sometimes
such a nice guy.
guys, I don't know if you've heard of this. Sometimes the nice
guys finish last. Yeah.
Sometimes.
I will say, I don't think that there's anything I've seen Cary Grant in that I don't like. I really love Cary Grant. Pardon?
Did you say arsenic and old lace?
Yeah.
You don't like that?
Oh, I do like it, but he's huge in that. Huge. It's appropriate. It's appropriate for the piece because the piece is very.
Oh, okay.
Very...
I also love that. It's one of my dad's favorites.
I love his mannerisms. He's just very.
He's
very
cool. I want to buy a suit and
classically. I want to be able
cases.
to sit down and cross my legs like he does, and put his hand in his pocket, and it just looks so not feminine at all. Like if any other man did that, cool. It would look feminine, but he just makes it look like freaking manly.
He's classy as he's the definition of classy. I think.
AF. He is classy AF.
He's really cool. So I want to talk about this ending, and then we can move on. So Mark, go ahead. You were going to say something?
I don't know if I should.
Yes, you should.
More of the dark side of Hollywood. No, it's more of the dark side of Hollywood.
Oh, okay.
Art not imitating life in that sense with Cary Grant, because
I'm sure that's very common, unfortunately. Yeah. But yeah, for the ending, so Mark, you were saying you didn't like the contrivance of the ending, in the sense of, one, that she wouldn't go to him when she was hit. Now it's interesting. So Jax was saying that
she wouldn't at least tell him. Now I can understand what Jax is saying, and I can, not wanting to be a burden on somebody, being self-conscious about how different you are now than you were before, and not wanting to be rejected. Like, you could see, like, now that you're different, now that you're potentially problematic, somebody might not want to be with you again. But I would have to communicate with him that I showed up.
So one of the things I've noticed about a lot of movies, my criticism of a lot of romance movies where they throw in the word love, is that I never buy that the two characters are actually in love. I don't know anything about, other than they say that they're in love. Here, and I'm going to give you a couple of examples. I think it's so clear why these two characters are magnetically attracted to each other. And it's not just their beauty. I mean, that's obviously the surface level at a certain point. But just as an example, when you see the opening right before they're about to meet, the meet cute, if you, as you will, like what Cary Grant says. So this guy, his big old under chin, comes up to him like, "Do you want to come and hang out with my wife and sister?" And play poker with us. And you remember what Cary Grant says?
Oh, he says that he's a cheat.
He says, "I cheat," and it's an addiction, right? And then he walks over. Yeah, he walks out. So and he's a playboy. He was just talking to Gabriella, right? And she's like, "You're married?" He goes, "Okay." And then he goes and he says, "I think you have my jewel case." Now, what does Terry Mackey, the actress Deborah Kerr, what does she say? Her first line to him. So he's a cheat. She says, she has a cigarette case, silver, jewel, thief. They're the same person. They're both this, and they both have a similar background. They're in the sense of, she comes up from a place where she's dancing, singing in nightclubs from when to when, from 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. I mean, this is the dark hours, right? This is the erotic era. Like she is not, she's like a stripper. She's essentially, I think, a 1940s version of that kind of thing. And he's a playboy going around the world, sleeping with different women and living that kind of lifestyle and being a Lothario and things like that. And so, in other words, I don't think they're great people in that sense, right? And they're very lighthearted on this love thing, but they connect with each other. They find this love with each other, and they see that because they're also similarly matched in their repartee, right? So the repartee is on point, and she can really attack him and go back. Like they play the game.
Yeah, she's definitely a worthy adversary.
She's a worthy adversary, 100%. She plays him as much as he plays her. The lines and the dialogue, I think, is phenomenal. We can go. I have a whole bunch of these quotes here. The dialogue is great. Everything is, there's so much subtext. Every line is subtext, which to me is great. Maybe some people don't like that as much, and maybe that's the writer in me or something.
Oh, I think no, subtext is great. It's modern. That's the way modern screenplays and plays are written. It's what's underneath the words.
Yeah.
The words could be saying exactly the opposite of what their intent is, and that's great.
Although
here, there's lots of innuendo in the things that they say. It's very, very good.
So, all I'll say is, so I think their characters before they meet are very similar. She comes from this seedy place where she's getting pinched by her manager, and then he's going around sleeping with women, and then they meet, and then they have to figure out how to actually make a love work, and that's the complex part. And I think they fall in love in the southern France, where they go to the grandmother, where it's basically an Eden. It's very the cults of love. There's all kinds of reverence commentary, and that's where they fall in love. And then they come down to earth. There's a great line where she says, there's like he says, "Oh, it looks beautiful down there," and she's like, "Oh, do you know the old joke?" And he's like, "What joke?" "Yeah, if it's so beautiful down there, why'd you bring me up here?" Right. But it's like this idea of they're going from the real world into this magical place, and then they have to come back down into the real world, and there's all these different obstacles that get in their way, and it's how they figure out how to navigate it. I mean, classic romance, classic rom-com in that sense. Now, it's interesting that you think it's contrived, though, the ending, because so yes, in a sense, like you could say I think it's some people, I probably would tell the person, like, I I shouldn't admit this, but like, when I've had a breakup and it's like, and I almost felt like, man, if I did get in a bad accident, I could call this person and be like, "Oh, you want like something?" Like, it's not a great fantasy. It's a horrible thing, but it's like, you might say that kind of thing. You might feel that. But the whole point is that they want to become worthy of each other. That's the whole point of the 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole point. And so when she kind of gets knocked down, remember, what's their line about pedestals? He holds them up, right? What's the problem with pedestals? They wobble and topple. She was toppled. And now she's like, well, I'm not on the pedestal anymore. So she's afraid. And I think a lot of us have this fear when it comes to romance about we build a pedestal for somebody, and then if it wobbles, it's not going to be, what we thought it would be. So those are just some of my thoughts about why I loved it so much. I think they're great characters, are great people. They're the same kind of person going through the same kind of thing. They meet in this scenario. They're magnetically attracted. I'll say that. I mean, I'll be honest. I experienced this last summer at a conference where when you're attracted to someone in a confined space like that, and it's like every time they just run into, like, they literally bump heads in the swimming pool. And I don't know if you guys ever felt this in real life, where it's just like, you're not supposed to be with somebody, and you cannot get away from them, and you drawn to them so intensely. And I thought they did a great job of that. Anyway, what don't you guys think of that stuff?
Who wants to go?
So I did like the I will double down on I did like the ending. And I did like the chemistry between the two of them. I've definitely been in that situation too, where you keep running into somebody and you're like, and they're like, in my case, it was like the wrong person that I should have been running into, but we couldn't keep ourselves apart. But
Normally, that's the way it is with chemistry attractions like that.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
It's the wrong person, and that's why I
Often,
think
not all.
taking
But
the
what is good about that is that they wanted to become the right person for each other.
Yes,
They wanted to be,
they wanted to
I
earn
do
it.
like that aspect. They wanted to become worthy. They chose 6 months for a particular reason. It wasn't just, as soon as we get off the boat, we're going to ditch our fiancés and,
Yeah, let's work for
get
it.
married, so I did think that was,
I didn't. I mean, I would never put it in that way, but you frame it in a way. The formulation is interesting to me that they wanted to become the right person. I took it more as they're taking the 6 months to see if the feelings still persist, if they're still thinking about each other. It's a trial period at which they will see whether the relationships they're already in are indeed the right ones to go with, or this feeling still persists with them. And if it's still there after 6 months, then there's something real there.
Why do you think that though? Because they break up very quickly after they leave the boat with both their partners. Because I think so I took it as they were, my argument is they're trying to.
I took it again as they're in the throes of this passionate feeling, and they simply can't sit with the other person in that feeling. I've been there before.
Oh yeah, I think we
You
all have.
fall in love with another person, but you're with somebody else, and you're like, you really can't be there. Even though your mind is telling you, I want to give this some time. I want to see what the fuck is going on. You get with the person, and it's all wrong. It's all wrong. And so you're still feeling, your feelings compel you to sort of go, this isn't working for me. This isn't right.
Yeah.
I've been on both sides of that issue with people before. So
Yeah.
that's why I took the 6 months as, did they explicitly say, we want to become better for each other? But
yes. He says that specifically. And in fact, that is also the 1939 explicit thing, is he needs to become worthy of specifically him and more than her, actually.
Where does he say that? This is before they leave the ship. So he says that then?
Yeah, because his character is, he's bored about life. He's good at everything. Life is boring to him. He doesn't try anything. All he does is sleep with women who are rich, go on their yachts, and be taken care of. So he needs to learn how to take care of her. And that's part of the whole point of his journey. And he says explicitly that I want to take 6 months to try something to become, I don't remember exact line. I'm about to look it up now. But yes, he does, I think, very explicitly say that that's what he's trying to do. And in fact, in the interview, remember he's interviewed with his wife when he comes home, and she's like, and the reporter's like, do you want to, what are you going to do to take care of her? Remember, she's $600 million, 1957. That's how much she's worth, right? And he's like, what are you going to do to take care of her and keep her up in a lifestyle? I'm going to be a painter. And she's like, you're going to do what? And it doesn't, because he wants to do this thing to become worthy. And then he paints a lot. He does painting on advertising posters. He does whatever it takes to try to become worthy of her. He tries to build his own life, which he never did. He used other people to have his life. Go ahead.
Maybe I didn't see enough of him going through the transformation. I see him trying to sell his paintings to a art dealer. And then I see him at a billboard and I'm like, oh, he must have progressed quite a bit. Now he's doing it for a living. But it wasn't, I never.
Well, that's a regression. The painting of the billboard's a regression of his career.
No, but it's not. To me, it's not. To me, it's like, it's not a regression, because this is a guy who, would hang out with multimillionaires and do nothing. And here he is working. I mean, to me, I found,
yes, I agree with you.
I found that as a step up. Like, he's now deciding that he's got to get his hands dirty.
Yes, it is a step up. But I think so his first career goal was to be a painter of his actual paintings. He can't sell them. He cannot sell them. And on his own, because remember, he doesn't want to use his own name. So the art dealer's like, if I could use your name, I could sell these. And he's like, no, I got to do it on my own. And so he cannot sell his paintings as an artist. So he paints advertisers for other things. Now, I agree with you. It is a step up from you got to start at the bottom and work your way up.
Moral. It's
Yeah,
morally.
it's a moral. Yes, absolutely. But it is a step down from what he had envisioned at first, which was to be a painter, right? And then he eventually does get there. I think.
Something about that transition didn't work for me.
Okay.
Even if he had said it explicitly, I must have missed it, because I didn't know that this was the time at which he was going to, put himself through ordeals to become a better man. This was the trial by fire, so that he could meet up to the standards of what it would take to actually be married to the woman that he loves. That's very good. I like that concept. I wasn't on board.
This is what I loved about it.
You love that.
I love that they were pursuing their dreams, but I didn't know that it was for the purpose of,
yeah.
I know that it was the directed purpose of becoming better people for each other. Because she doesn't strike me as a near stripper.
No, she didn't. I didn't pick up on that.
He strikes me as suave, but not as morally decrepit as a playboy.
Well, but he's clearly morally decrepit as a playboy, and she has just said that that's where she comes from. And then that was her
thing. Doesn't make it so. So it's like,
by the way, stripper's a little harsh. All I'm saying is she, like, the 10 to 3 a.m. crowd is a particular crowd that she's catering to.
I think she's like a cabaret. I saw her more as like cabaret.
That's fair. I don't have any problems with it personally, by the way. I'm saying in the world that they're in, I think there's, they're on the outskirts of socially acceptable in a lot of ways. And they're using other people, her, the man who's a banker in mergers, and him, an heiress, another one.
Legitimize themselves, you think? Are they using them to?
Yeah, to live this, to continue this fairy tale, thing that they don't actually like. It's not really them. It's really the tabloid-esque vision. So let me ask you, let's move on to the tabloid part of this.
So I like that, because they do go to finding their authentic selves. And I would like that.
That's part of it. So let's talk, I'm curious if you guys, Jennifer, Jax, some tabloid stuff. So you notice it starts with tabloid-esque, right? You have these 2 or 3 radio announcers talking about the love affair between Nikolai and what's the
Gabriella? Is it Gabriella?
No, that's the one he's having an affair with.
Oh, that's the one he's having.
Yeah, he did. Right. He's marrying Lois Clark, I think it's her name. And
that's right, because it reminded me of Lois and Clark.
Yeah.
The show.
I don't know if that's Lois. So anyway, there's all these expectations, and I thought, of what their love is like, in a sense. It's like, ooh la la, she's got a lot of lettuce and what a tomato, right? Is what he says. That's what that one guy says. And there's, so I'd be curious, like, there's the expectations of their love that everybody else has of them, and then there's the actual experience. And this seems to be very much like the tabloids to me, today and of all times. We have our visions of what love is, of these stars, and then there's the reality of it, in a sense, where they're not really even enjoying that experience. I don't know, what do you guys think about that?
I think that's very real. I think most people have this experience now with social media, where people advertise their relationships as something they're not. Everybody thinks, oh my God, they're happy. They have the perfect relationship. Look at them traveling all over the world.
Yeah, look at all their Facebook posts and Instagrams.
And they're miserable. They're actually miserable together.
Yeah.
So there's definitely that idea that there's a wide gap between the ideal and what actually is.
Yes. Which I think is the theme of this story. Jennifer, Jax, comments?
Interesting.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I like that it was interesting that they started with the reporters, right, all around the world that are reporting on Nikki. It's Ferrante, right? Is it Ferrante? Okay,
Ferrante, yeah, Nicola
Ferrante. It's and kind of all throughout as their as their romance is growing on the ship, they're having to they're fighting against the tabloids, right? Against being found out. He takes the he takes the negatives out of the camera and throws it up, but then it kind of then they were like selling them, right? And they kept the reporters kept taking pictures and then selling pictures of them somewhere.
Yeah.
So I thought that I don't really have much more to say though, just about like the tabloid aspect. I don't know if Jennifer's got anything to add to it. It wasn't
Okay.
it I mean it wasn't like it didn't like strike me in a particular way. So maybe there was something you were seeing in it, Kirk, that I missed.
Well, I think it goes, so I see this theme hit in different ways over and over again. I mean, let's just take the little boy, right? So there's a scene with a little boy where he's tangled up. What's the point of this scene? So you have a little boy, he's like a little Cary Grant, almost like he's like a, cute little boy who's tangled up in something, and then she comes to try to untangle him. And he looks at Cary Grant. He's like, "What? Or the Cary Grant says to the little boy, "You're quite a little fellow." He says, and the little boy says, "You're quite a little fellow." Right? It's the same thing. And people are talking about you. And then when Cary Grant walks away, he's like, Cary Grant's like, "You take care of this, right? It's on you." And so what does she do? She tries to console him. She puts her hands on his leg and says to the little boy, and like, "Oh, it's, you got to be careful because you might break your leg." And I did that. I fell out of a tree and broke my leg when, and the little boy says, um,
You're good now or something.
yeah,
It's
he
fine.
says like, "So what's wrong with your leg now?" She's like, "Nothing, it's fine." He's like, "So what are you crabbing about?" And so the idea, to me, the idea of falling from the tree, right, going from the high to the low, yeah, you might get a little bit of hurt. So what? Get over it. Like, go for it. And to me,
Was that like an interesting use of foreshadowing where she talks about
ooh,
breaking
I
her
didn't even think
leg?
of that.
And
Yes,
now
Yeah, I thought of that.
I did not think about that. That's really good. But to me, it's this high-low theme over and over and over and over all the time. Like the grandmother can literally not descend down because she is heavenly. That the Empire State Building is the high. That's the whole point. And remember, why does she get hit? What is she doing? Remember,
she was
she's
looking up.
she's
She was
looking
looking up.
up. And sometimes when you look up, you get hit by a car. That's reality. And that does happen. And that is a part of the looking up. And it's a danger. That doesn't mean don't look up. It means deal with it. Like the little boy says, "You okay? Get over it.
Let you
Stop
grab
being
and
crabby."
go.
Well, yeah, like it's worth it. In other words, it's like
Yeah.
I have to think about Fountainhead, like same kind of scenario in a sense. It's like, yeah, there's pain, but it only goes so deep.
Mm.
And let it happen. It's okay. It doesn't mean give up on the ideals. And that's what I see so many people
Better
doing
to have
today.
loved and lost than never to have loved at all.
And well, there's that too, which is by the
The
way,
pain of loss.
yeah, that's from Tennyson, In Memoriam. It's a great poem. And that's actually about a death. And but that's the idea behind that is I think there's pain is part of loving. It can happen, but that doesn't mean don't love and don't go after romance. And what these two characters were doing was they were going after the pure practical. And I have to say, in our era, I don't know, I see this as like the dominant theme of love and relationships, where people basically give up on the idea of a real romantic connection. Not everybody, but a lot of people. And they just
I agree totally.
like, let's go for the practical, pure practical, versus let's go for the ideal and make the practical come along with us. We'll figure it out. Yeah, life's going to be hard, maybe a little harder, but it's so much
Might
better.
have to try a little bit.
Yeah, life
But
is
it's worth
champagne.
it.
Life shouldn't life be pink champagne, as he says, and it should. And the only way to do that is to have the high ideal. You're gonna fall. Yeah, you could fall, and you will fall probably, and you just got to mend that leg and get back up there. That's why I love this movie. It's because everything is so coordinated around that theme. It's just hitting it over and over again. And I think these old movies are so much better at like having a simplified plot theme and just hammering away at that one thing from different angles. Mother, grandmother to grandson, grandmother to her widowed husband, these two lovers, the lovers with their exes, the man with the kind of shabby wife where he thinks he can reach up to the heavens. Like everywhere, this theme is just hitting you over the head, and I think it's beautiful. All right, there's my defense.
What did you guys think of the singing?
The kids singing?
Yeah, the kids singing.
Oh.
That just cracked me up.
It cracked me up too.
It just needed to be
creepy.
cut. It was
Yeah.
very creepy that some of those kids looked so creepy.
Well, I thought it went on for a long time. It was like
It went on too long. It
Yeah.
went on
That was
too
the
long.
point.
I was like, are we
Yeah.
in Sound of Music now? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, but it was stuff like that that didn't allow me, it kept popping me out of the narrative. And I think that's, one of the reasons why my response is so tepid. There were not just the singing scenes, but I thought that the scene in with the grandmother, um, even though I understand its reason, but I thought that went on too long. There were places where it dragged, and it either went on too long, or I didn't think it should have been there in the first place, and it popped me out. And when I get popped out of a narrative, I can't embrace the story like I want to. And I think I don't think it would survive a modern day cut. I don't think it would survive a modern day edit.
To the detriment of modern day. I think this is our problem. But go ahead, Mark. I'm going to defend this again.
I mean, I agree with all your connections. I agree with all your formulations. It's actually making me think about the movie in a way that I wasn't before. But I still like the grandmother scene, not even because it represented the high or the ideal, but from the human perspective, as a playboy who seems
Yes.
not have any connections or attachments
That's true.
to anybody. See him so connected to his grandmother and
Yeah.
It
to
was saving the
love
cat
her so
moment.
much.
Marius and the dog. And
Yeah, and all that
Yeah.
it anchored him. It brought him down to earth in a way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Even for Terry's character to see him human,
Mhm.
not some two-dimensional character in a tabloid, but a man with a life and a past
Yeah.
and real loves, not just the stuff that passes before us on the tabloids, but this deep, genuine, real human being who's lived life and has her roots deeply, planted in the earth. So that actually made him more human to me. It gave him dimension. It was like a save the cat moment almost, which you're supposed to have sort of in the
Really.
first 5 minutes of a script,
Yeah.
put you on the page with the main character. That got me actually feeling more for him as a human being.
Which is interesting because they go up to do that, right? That's again the up to learn about his past and the down in a sense.
Now I wonder if the writer has all of this thematic ideal in mind as he's writing, because sometimes writers aren't privy to the themes that they're writing. What was
Well, we'll have to watch. I think we should watch, if we want to, the Love Affair movie, because I wonder how much of it is in there, because I have not seen that. And because one of the things about writing something that's like a remake is you can see it critically also. You could tear it apart and see, oh, look at all these things, and you could purposefully, I think it's easier to purposely do that.
For example, when I see the movie Dogville, have you guys ever seen the movie Dogville?
Mm-mm.
Lars,
Dogville? No.
yeah, Lars von Trier is one of my favorite directors, but there's a movie called Dogville, with Nicole Kidman plays the main part in it, and Lars von Trier simply said it's a movie about revenge, which frankly, sorry for the spoiler, it doesn't happen until the very end. But it's not, in my view. I mean, and so I don't know. He could have a completely different theme in his mind with thematic elements.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Me as the person viewing it got something else entirely. I had this whole metaphor going in my mind that works for made it one of my favorite movies, particularly because it's happening at a certain time. So I'm wondering, and maybe you guys as writers can talk about it. And I write, but and I think about thematic elements, but it's not. I'm not. It's not like I put the theme up there and try to hit it all the time. It's like it sort of has to come intuitively, right? It's
Yeah.
there's conscious elements to it, but in the
Well, we
create.
when
I
okay,
like
so
to
we
I like to settle on a theme, and then like Kirk was saying, try to tackle it at different angles with the subplots.
Well, you have
That's
to
really
inform you have to give
that's really good writing. It's
give
not,
your
it's hard to
subconscious
achieve.
you have to give your subconscious some direction for sure, but when it's coming out, it sort of doesn't it feel like it writes itself? It's coming out of, you know what I mean?
I feel like that. Like well, when when Jen and I write together, we talk about what are the themes that that we want to write around. And but what often happens with me when I write is maybe we'll have talked about a theme, and as I begin to kind of embrace the characters, I kind of start realizing maybe the theme is a little bit different, because it's just they're wanting to pull me in a particular direction. And so sometimes I think the theme gets modified. And I have had the experience too where I had no idea I was writing about a particular theme, but when I got done with it, I'm like, oh, I actually was. So yeah, I think I think it's possible to have both. And I think that, kind of reading into certain themes, even if the writer didn't intend it, it could be that it was part of the subconscious coming out of the writer.
Well,
Also could be what the audience member is going through at the moment. Like they're going to latch on to certain things because they can relate to it and not latch on to others because they can't. And so that also happens too, and where you make up your own theme.
Yeah. So Ayn Rand had a concept called plot theme, which was her. So I really recommend for anybody who wants to be a writer, you need to read the books that are edited by Torey Backman, the principle or the art of fiction. And also there's the art of nonfiction. It's a great course. You can listen to it now, I think, for free online through the Ayn Rand.
Didn't those books start out from her? Weren't those books based on her lectures?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's a course that she gave to a select group of people in New York. They were just asking like, oh, how do you do what you do? And of course, Ayn Rand being
over the books because
what's that?
So I recommend that over the book Art of Fiction.
I like both.
I didn't think it when I listened to the lectures, I got so much more out of it and than I did from the book.
If you want to be a writer, just do both. Like quit crabbing about it. It's great. Because the book is I listened to the book and read the book 25 times when I was in college. It was my Bible. And then I did listen to the courses later and it was great too. Anyway, point is she talks about the plot theme, which is her concept of trying to bring from the abstract theme to the actual events. And it's the connector between the two for a story. And it's critical to have that plot theme in her view to be a good story because you need it as a writer. And that's, I think that's a very valuable tool. And I think even if I think in film school, they call it like the through line. They have different terms for this kind of idea, but you do want to have like a one-line synopsis of what you're trying to create. And the better you are at creating that and understanding the elements of the abstract theme and the concrete that you're bridging and creating something, I think the better you are as a writer. And great artists of all kinds do that really well. And I think this does that well because he has the visual of the Empire State Building, I think, as a solidifying theme. So the high-low, he hits it all the time. I don't know if he said, like, let me do high-low all the time, but he just has, like, okay, ideal, high, problems with the world, concrete, low, something like that. He's just hammering it away with this story, which is a story he's rewriting from something he's already done. And he's like trying to maybe even, he did it when he's younger. Now he's older, he's wiser, he's more read.
So was it the same writer that did?
Well, it's the same director. So I don't know if it's the same writer. Is it the same writer? Okay, thank you. Yeah, definitely same director. So yeah, it's like they got to do it again and they did it maybe they did it better the second time. I don't know. We'll see. Now, okay, so before we go, I think that this
time to go already? Wow.
Well, I don't know when Mark might have to go, but to me, there's a lot to talk about. I can talk about every scene in this movie because there's so much good stuff. But I think that there's something universal in this experience for me. Like, I told you I was at a conference and that like the scene of the elements of them being magnetically drawn to each other when they're not supposed to be, because they're supposed to be with other people, and yet they cannot get away from each other in a sense. Now, yes, I think there is a contrivance, as Mark, I think you're right. But to me, that's kind of what I like about the older films sometimes, is that it is, because it's not like natural isn't what they're going for. They are, art to me is artifice. It is the artificial. And they're trying to show you in different ways this thing. Now, we could argue like having some naturalism is good sometimes because it can get you in as an audience. It can get you more invested or, lost in the story in a sense, like because your active mind goes away if it's good naturalism, I think. But I also think that there's something valuable to this kind of artifice where we have all these kinds of contrivances because I can see them in my own life, not in the way that they did it, but in unique ways. So the love affairs that I've had, so we're going to talk about real love affairs for those who are interested. You don't have to say your story, of course, but the love affairs that I have had have almost always followed this exact model in, if you take just the abstractions of what they're doing with this story and you apply it to your own specific concretes, it's 100% very similar in my experience. And I don't know if you guys are comfortable sharing a love affair that might be similar, but the idea of you meet somebody, you're not, you feel like you're, like for some reason, you're societally not supposed to be with them because you're with somebody else. So there's some pull from something else, but you cannot
either you're with somebody else or just the circumstances of the two of you being together is not something that other people would approve or yeah.
And so you have these kind of pull. And now the pull may be internal, like they could just say, forget it and just be together, but they can't. By the way, this is Anna Karenina. It's the whole story of Anna Karenina. And this is a very long trope of this romantic story. But you cannot resist each other. There's something dynamic and magnetic about it. You try to make it work, and then it kind of does topple. And then the question is, do you figure out how to put the pieces together and work it in the practical world, or do you just give up on it and Anna Karenina, spoiler, jumps under a train? Like those are your choices. So what do you do? And now I'm a romantic. Like I consider myself a high romantic. I believe you take your romantic vision of what you want out of love and life and productive work, and you try to figure out how to make the practical world work with you in that regard. I've had this experience in my past several times, but I am single at 38. So, what are you going to do? So, all right.
I'm jaded.
So what is everybody else's honest opinion? So Jennifer, you're jaded.
I'm jaded because I have that romantic in me. Like that's what I loved about the story was that he wanted to be a better person. So he stepped up and he went and he did the hard work to do it because he loved her that much. That all sounds great in the movies. In reality, I find it's a different story, at least in my experience.
Well, do you have an example?
I have a couple examples.
Okay.
But first of all, I was proposed to on the top of the Empire State Building many years ago. I guess was because of this movie, and I didn't even know.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah. Well, but that was
did you like that proposal, by the way?
I did, but it clouded my judgment. I think I was very young, and the whole world thought, "Oh, that's so romantic," and I got swept up in that, and without really listening to my heart.
That's the danger of romance.
Yeah. I was recently on a cruise last October and had a little spark flying with a fellow cruise person, which was instant, pretty instant conversation. I think a sense of humor that just locked in, an intelligence that was similar to mine. It was fun, but we don't live in the same town, and there's going to be work if you've got to make a long distance relationship work. And how do you turn a fling into something meaningful? And
that's the question.
Yeah, that is. And it takes both people having that romantic ideal and both people working towards it. And if you don't, then it just doesn't work. It can't. And it's heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking.
Because as the romantic, you can see
exactly
what it could be.
Yes.
And you're like, why can't you see?
Yeah. I have this literally, like just in the last several months, the same exact scenario happened. And it's like, yeah, you could see it happening. You could see the value, but the other person doesn't, and they're in a different state or whatever, you know, and you can't make them see it. Now, in this movie, they do both decide. And I think that's the critical thing. And so, yes, if you both decide to do it, you can do it. And then the whole, to me, the whole like anxiety of, or the the conflict is, are they going to be able to do it? And are they actually going to stick by their decision?
Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody else want to share put
You know,
I
yourself
will.
out there?
I'll share my tragic heartbreak.
Oof.
Uh,
We're putting it all out there. We're gonna turn this into a therapy session at the end.
It's very. I
Therapy
hope I
through
don't.
affairs.
I hope I don't cry.
Okay. Oh no.
But since you guys are sharing, I'll
Yeah.
share.
I'm
So
holding it back myself. Don't worry. That's why I
it
smile.
was there were so many things wrong about it. It was a workplace affair. And we just, our chemistry was off the charts, off the charts. And at first I was very blind to it. I was very like naive. I did like, because he was with another person, and like was married. And
Yeah.
I was like, no, he couldn't be flirting with me. He couldn't be, but everybody else, all my coworkers were like, what, you didn't see it? And, it's like, we just couldn't like stay away from each other. And so we began a very passionate affair, but I was like, but it can't be like this, because, I'm nobody's mistress. Right. And, and so he actually decided it literally was like 6 months. It was
Same thing.
I have to give the, because he eventually he told his wife, and he was, but then his wife basically fell on her sword and was like, no, it was all my fault, and let's go to. She basically made him go to like Catholic reconditioning camp, and to bring their marriage back together. But he's and I had actually stopped being with him, because I was like, this isn't, if we want to be together, it has to be in an honest way and in a good way. And, I was just so in love with him. And I know that he was absolutely in love with me as well. Like, I know that he wasn't just like, playing around. And he had made the decision that he was going to leave on this day. He bought a plane ticket. He was going, he was preparing, everything. And the day before he was supposed to come and be with me so that we could be together forever, he called me up and said, I can't do it. I can't do it. And
Can't pull
so,
the trigger.
and I was heartbroken, absolutely heartbroken. Jennifer was there for it, actually.
You were at my
Uh,
house.
I
picked
was
up the
at her
piece.
house
Oh no.
when I
Yeah.
got that call, and I was just heartbroken, absolutely in a million pieces. But
Yeah.
I was so, but I believed in the love, and I believed in the romance of it. And it took everything to not get jaded over it. But
Yeah.
I, anyhow, that's my story. Mark, do you have one?
I, thank you for sharing, Jax. I know yeah, I think that's a good, I mean, a good
Was
example to me, because I think a lot of us have felt that for sure. I had the same exact experience. Yeah, Mark,
do
you willing to share, or
I
you
have
don't have to?
one? I feel, I feel like I feel like I have been to the pits of hell and the highest heavens with women, and women women have, without a woman in my life, I would not know who I am. I would not know what my medal was. I would be I wouldn't be. They have compelled me to the highest heroism I've ever achieved interpersonally, and or my love for them has propelled me into that, to the, I mean, crazy heights of romantic. Um, I was going to use a word that wouldn't be very good for objectivists, but what feels like sacrifice. But you're just loving somebody and
Yeah.
Mhm.
anything
yeah.
possibly can for them.
Yeah.
I mean, I think my relationship now is what has spurred me into a deeper study of objectivism and to become a deeper, honest, better person who stands by his principles, which makes life a little bit hard, because it's becoming harder and harder for me to smile through anything if I don't feel like, if it's not appropriate, if it's not right. And I don't know that I could have achieved that without my my woman, my love. And we have a very intense relationship. As I am, sometimes it's like an immovable object meeting an unstoppable force, and that's the way we roll. Yeah, she's not used to that in her life. Her previous relationships just was a yes person. I'm not a yes person. I'm a convince me person, or no, or my way, or so we can smash heads, but we're both strong. And I don't know that I necessarily change her for the better, but I know that it's changed me. I feel like oftentimes it's the relationships that I have had, as tragic as many of them have been, it's the fire that has forged steel, to me. And I mean, I have been in crazy experiences. I could tell you experiences that you'd be like, what the fuck? We have to do a movie about this.
Okay, well, we should do a movie.
Maybe.
Yeah, let's do it.
But
Yeah.
I don't regret any of it, even though maybe I should, but I don't.
I think that's a really good theme, though, Mark, that you are touching on, and it does go back to the movie. We should have also done As Good as It Gets, because that's probably got one of the best lines ever.
Yeah, we could still do that someday.
You make me want to be a better man. And I think that is very much like the essence of that big love. When you have that kind of a big love for you want to be a better person. You want to be a better version of you, not just for that person, but the great thing about it is you want to do it for yourself. You really, like, any good love that I've had, and it also works conversely. Any toxic love that I've had, I've felt like a bad person, or like a miserable person, and I don't feel good about myself. But the good big love that I have, I feel really good about myself, and I want to be better for that other person, for myself.
Sometimes those toxic relationships, though, can force you into defining yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you, and maybe it's subjectivism that helps with that. Like, once you have philosophy and you have a bit of a moral compass, a lot of those toxic folks are narcissists, and you start to see what's happening, and and instead of going along like a person with no self-esteem, you start to say no.
Yeah.
And you start to define boundaries in a way that you didn't before. Wasn't it Socrates that was asked by his followers, why are you with your wife? She's so cruel to you. Do you guys know this story?
No, I didn't even.
I think it's in the Symposium. Yeah. Right.
Is it right? It was like
something like that. I don't remember exactly, but there's.
And I think he said something like, I'm working on the virtue of, what was it? It was something like, I'm working on the virtue of patience. And if I could be patient with her, I could be patient with anyone. It was some virtue that he was sorting out.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's sort of the tool of working out this virtue. And there's always space to practice, to getting more clear about who you are. And I don't think you can really do that without another person. You can't do it. I mean, bachelors are boys, right? And that's what Cary Grant's character is.
He's the boy. Yeah.
Boy, and then he becomes a man for his love for her. I mean, waiting there on the 102nd floor of the Empire State Building the whole day until it rained and stormed, until he's the last person standing. That's what a man does.
And remember, his grandmother says, like, she's worried when he actually faces a failure, a trial, or something like that, because he's never faced anything. He's good at everything. He gets all the women. They all want him, and they all pamper him and put him on yachts and things like that. He doesn't have to do anything, right? Yeah. And if you ever, I'm sorry, you could help me, but because I don't know this world, but if you read or listen to interviews or of like the stars, actors, like, this seems to be a dominant problem that some of them have, where in a sense, like they get everything handed to them, especially when they're young and they get it really young. And this is like a common theme where you see this. Yeah, I'm sure you've seen it where it's like they get every door in the world is open for these individuals.
The door in the world is open and nobody says no.
And nobody says no.
And it's shocking after a while, it becomes shocking to them if somebody says no, which was funny. It was funny to watch my wife teach James Franco after he became a star.
I didn't know that.
She would stop his exercises within 2 minutes because they were so bad. No other teacher would do that. And get so infuriated because nobody stopped James Franco.
Yeah, he's such a genius.
Every time she hated his work, and she would just be like, I mean, I don't think without her he could have gotten better because he got better. I mean, he got better for a lot of reasons before his real character came out for everybody to see what a jagoff he was. But but yeah, you're right. When you get in the habit of everybody thinking or pretending at least that everything you say is gold, it's like Buddha talking. You get a very distorted perception of who you are and the weight of what you're saying, and that's why some of these celebrities. I mean, people accuse me of this, but they come out and they say shit, and you're like, "What the fuck is this guy thinking?" But I still have people who tell me no. I don't surround myself with people who tell me yes.
No, you have a lot of no people. I mean, we tell you no today.
Yeah. And you moved my
No, Mark.
No. Right.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. Okay.
Oh, is it moving?
Yeah.
It's moving. Okay.
Yeah, mine moved a little bit too, Kirk.
Yeah.
All right.
Kirk.
Yes, I got a little bit.
Thumbs up.
I think it's the date shirt that did it for me, Kirk.
This is how I work on the ladies. Is I with the date shirt. They come to me and they're like at the tepid, and I'm like, all right, let me see if I can move that up a little
The
bit.
pheromones are coming through the headphones.
Caliente.
I try to go with it, but yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing about the forging a character through desiring something that you really want, and especially when you want it, right? Ayn Rand has that line, to say I love you, or Howard Roark, one must first know how to say the I. That's what I think Dominique has to learn in that story. That's the fountainhead in a certain sense. And look, that's what you do when you say like, I love this. It's not those people or those, but like, and that is a radical discovery. And it's why it's, to me, it's really rare that young people can really find eternal love, because they haven't often found the ability or the voice to say, now if they have, because maybe they had good parents or whatever, or they were just a good person, or they had like, whatever the reasons, they might just be, I don't know, but they did have it at a great age. I have met people like this who are like, I think I'll throw his name out here, like Yaron Brook, right? Like he's been married since he was like 18 years old and he's 62 now. And like I've heard, I don't know if you've heard his story, but I've heard similar stories of things like this. And yeah, I think that guy had like his eye pretty early. She had her eye. They found each other. They loved, and then they forged a life together. But if you don't have that,
and they're still very much in love. I love watching the two of them together. When you see them at conferences, and and
they're perfect for each other. It's amazing.
He's very attentive to her. I mean, he's so Yaron, like he's one way on his podcast, and he's very in charge, and he's obviously very opinionated. But there's a really lovely there's a really lovely tenderness that comes out when he's with his wife.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but like that is part of the becoming an individual, is loving something. And that's what is the shown in this story. It's when you really, so we all say the word love. Oh, I loved that. I love that. So this is one of my problems whenever I listen to Hollywood people, by the way, is they love everything and everybody. And it's like, what are you talking about? Really? It's, oh, I loved you in this. I loved you. Do you really love everybody? It's like, anyway. So like when you really like deep down see something and you identify what you love about that thing or person who represents certain core values, you learn about yourself and what you really love. And when Cary Grant's character sees that he loves this jewel thief who's witty and she pushes back and she says, no, I'm not going to sleep with you. I don't go home with men. I don't go into men's room. My mother told me not to go into a man's room in any month that ends in R. Right? Like,
I love that. Yeah.
Such great. Right? And he's like, what? And he's struck back by her. He doesn't know what to say. And then he gets embarrassed when she's like, well, look at that man. Oh, he must be really handsome if I could say no to you. And if I say no to such a charming person as you. And he's like, he doesn't know what to do. And he's even embarrassed. He's like, well, all right, I guess and then, but he still pulls it through and he like asks her, well, would you like to go to dinner? She's like, yes. Right. And then they go out. And that to me, it's just like him figuring out how to love something is the whole point of the story, and her too, to some degree. And that's what you get in the end is because even in the end, I will have to say in that last scene, he's psychologically, that is so, it's an artistic portrayal of real psychology in the sense of he's protecting himself. He's protecting his heart by lying to her. So remember, he's lying the whole time by saying, I didn't go. And then she thinks like, oh, whoa, so then he never showed up? Oh, okay, so he doesn't even know. And then she realizes that that's not the case, that he's mad. He's like, wouldn't you have done this? This is why the subtext of the dialogue to me was just phenomenal.
Yeah, you stayed out there in the rain, in the pouring rain.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, it's so good. Anyway, I'll keep going on.
I will say one of my favorite things that Ayn Rand said, and I'm not sure what the context of it was, or if it was in a book, or if she just said it. But it was, show me the woman that a man sleeps with, and I'll tell you all of his values.
Yeah. It's Atlas Shrugged. That's Francisco d'Anconia says that.
Was it Francisco saying that?
Yeah, show me the woman that a man chooses to sleep with, and I'll tell you his philosophy of life.
Yeah. Which I think is just when you talk about like when you love somebody, you really learn a lot about yourself and about your values
or lack of values.
Yeah.
Like with James Taggart, right?
Ooh.
Right. That's it. Like the people who, I mean, look, most of us probably have had, Mark already said he went to the pits of hell with women. We've probably all been with people and had affairs with people that we should not have had. In certain sense, and it really was bad for us in the moment. But
it felt so good.
I didn't want to
say
so
bad it was good.
So bad it was good. Yeah, sometimes those great ones or those bad ones are the best. Let's not lie about that in terms of, but it may not be the best for us and our soul long term, but it definitely has, and like finding the match of those two, of having the great ideals and all as much of the practical as you can is the art of love, I think. And that's an affair to remember.
All right. So I'm a little like this now.
Yes. All right. But so any last thoughts you guys have on this story before we move on to the next, sign off this time?
No, I love your formulation of the themes and how the plot really hammered that thematic element home. It makes the movie a lot. Despite its naive rendering, I still think you could probably remake a movie like this today, and it would be I think it could be interesting remade, because I
try
think,
the Warren Beatty one. See what you think of that. That's 94. Right. I haven't seen that one either, so it'd be interesting.
Was that a remake of? Was that a direct remake of it?
Yeah. Yep. Same kind of concept.
Who was the female lead?
I can't remember. I'll have to look it up. Warren Beatty, Affair, Love Affair, something like that. That's 94.
He strikes
and that Benning, Terry Mann.
Oh, maybe that's where they started there.
Katharine Hepburn is Ginny, I think the grandmother.
Oh wow.
Oh, that makes sense.
I think he's perfect. I mean, he's a totally corrupted guy. I mean,
in real life.
Oh my god.
Oh, I don't.
Oh my god.
I kept seeing George Clooney in this role. I could not.
Yeah, I don't know if George.
He would be good in it.
Yeah,
he's got the charm, but I mean, Warren Beatty's that guy who said, being a movie star is like being in a whorehouse with an unlimited American Express card. He has banged everybody, and this is inside.
Oh my god.
I mean, I know something that happened with an actress friend of mine who was doing a play. I mean, only a decade ago, and stuff that he said backstage. I'm like, wow, this guy still. I mean, whatever works for their relationship, they seem to be still going. But he's not. I see. Maybe that's my cynical side. Like, there's no way a guy as corrupted as Cary Grant's character would actually be able to turn around for, because it's too ingrained. Like
Yeah.
a Beatty can't. He just can't.
I think I think like with someone like Cary Grant, I think you're probably correct. But Nikki Florente, yes, I think he could do it. I believe for me, I believed it, yes, personally. Um, given and this is the beauty of movies and art, is it's honing in on something and just focusing on
Well,
this
what's good
type of
about
thing.
that is like it's like, I have issues with this in some of Rand's work. It's like, where is that line when you cannot go back, when you cannot change? Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
Peter Keating, like how much corruption can the body take before it's irreversible?
Yeah.
I tend to think that it's always reversible at some point, but there are guys like the Warren Beatty type. They're always good. They can't change, even if they fall in love. They're too cynical. It's been too long and
Yeah.
never going to
Not gonna
become that
happen.
guy that tries to reform.
Yeah.
Uh,
I did think there's probably a point of no return. But if you believe in free will, then I think you have to acknowledge it is possible anywhere. And at least possible, but it becomes harder and harder with age, obviously, and experience. And because you're making integrations about the world, so you'd have to disentangle all of that. So the older you are, the more integrations you've made, subconsciously and consciously. So it's going to be harder and harder as you get older. And
I went through
that's
that like to a certain extent because just I mean very briefly that um I was traditionally always attracted to the wrong kind of man. Like, I mean, I would say the FBI should like just put me in the square somewhere and all the psychopaths will show up, like the 10 most wanted.
oh
I
my
would be like the
God.
perfect person
Oh
to like
no.
toxic men come find me.
Yeah.
No, but I was actually physically attracted to those kind of men. And then
Okay.
I went through a really, a lot of psychological stuff and depression and went through therapy. And through years of therapy, I gradually became attracted to a different kind of man, like
Yeah.
and that changed in me on like a subterranean level, right? But it's very difficult and it takes a long time, and I still sometimes will have that like initial attraction, and that's kind of how I know like, oh, that guy's bad for me because I actually like him, or I'm actually like attracted to him, and I have to like talk myself kind of out of it. But it is possible. It just takes a really long time and a lot of work and a lot of introspection.
Well, I'll just I can leave with a quote from Ayn Rand on romantic love, and we can stop there.
Yeah.
Unless any other last thoughts, Jennifer, do you have a last thought before I do this?
No, I was looking forward to your final quote.
Okay, so romantic love, in the full sense of the term, is an emotion possible only to the man or woman of unbreached self-esteem. It is his response to his own highest values in the person of another, an integrated response of mind and body, of love and sexual desire. Such a man or woman is incapable of experiencing a sexual desire divorced from spiritual values. And she attaches it to self-esteem. And I think that's
Mm,
very interesting to think about,
yeah.
and why I really bought that both of these characters needed the 6 months at least. And that's just like and to me, that's a romantic time lapse almost, because it probably would take longer. But at least 6 months to gain a little bit of self esteem on both sides, to be able to go up to that tower, meet, be in love, and make it work. And something happens. And so they have to do it. They can't do it at the top like they want to. They have to do it on the bottom when she's crippled and unable to move. And we don't know if she will ever move or walk again. That's not certain. It's indicated maybe.
She didn't she get up at one point?
No,
I thought
no.
she never got
it
up.
is very, that's the whole point, is it's uncertain whether he will be
Okay.
successful in his painting or whether she will walk. But she
Yeah.
believes that as much as he could do it with his, she says this, you could do your painting as much as I believe that I will walk. And the question is, you, the audience, you believe that they will have a love affair that will last forever and they'll end up with the grandma at the top, or will they not? And I believe they will.
I think they're going with Granny.
I think so.
They're gonna make it. They're gonna make it.
All right, everybody. Well, this has been a lot of fun. I love romance, as you know, so I hope we will do more romantic stories in the future. This will be great. And thank you
Should
all
we talk about the next one? So our audience can watch.
Do you want to? Because I don't just make sure we actually do it in the next one. Go for it. What's the next one?
Masters of Air.
Masters of the Air. Yeah.
Masters of the Air.
So we'll do that in a couple of weeks. So look out for that one. We'll go back to the TV show and maybe we'll do another movie after that. So, all right. Thank you, everybody. It's been fun.
Peace.